Effatha. Open the gates of your heart, not with the force of your will, but with the surrender of your soul. Feel the tremor, the first sign of light breaking through the ancient darkness that has enveloped your deepest longings. Notice the tense silence of the heavens, not an emptiness, but the sacred pause before the explosion of a promise. And then, listen. Hear the unmistakable sound, the resounding echo of chains breaking, shards of iron falling onto the floor of your old prisons. This is not a passive invitation. It is an invocation, a declaration, a command. Today is a day of breakthrough, a Sunday of miracles. The power of Effatha manifests now, tearing the veils of doubt and stagnation. Feel the earth tremble, the echo of freedom. For God is beginning a new cycle of victories in your life, opening what was closed, untying what was bound. Allow the divine light to flood every corner of your soul. You who hear me now, or you who read these words, know this. There is a veil, an invisible veil woven from ancient fears, from whispered failures, from doors that closed and never opened again. You have been living under this veil, perhaps without even realizing it, accepting the weight of resignation as if it were your destiny. How many times have you cried out in the silence of your room with a choked voice, feeling that your prayers echoed in the void, unanswered? How many dreams have been stored, locked in a dark cell of your mind because hope seemed an unattainable luxury? This veil is not merely a metaphor, it is a spiritual reality that manifests in tangible blockages in your life. It stands as a barrier between you and the fullness that God desires for you. Think of those moments when you felt you were hitting an invisible wall, a resistance that seemed to come from all directions, impeding your progress, undermining your joy, stealing your sleep and your peace. This feeling of imprisonment is not new. It resonates with the experiences of countless souls throughout history, described in the Holy Scriptures. Remember the story of the people of Israel in Egypt, narrated in Exodus. They were under the yoke of slavery, their voices silenced, their bodies exhausted, their hopes crushed under the whip of the taskmasters. Each dawn, the same routine of oppression, the same absence of freedom, the same scarcity. They cried out to God, but the answer seemed delayed. The sky seemed like bronze. The door to liberation was locked, not by a physical key, but by a system of power and disbelief that kept them captive, by a pharaoh with a hardened heart. Their cry was a shout for Effatha, for an opening, for a supernatural breakthrough. God, in his sovereignty and compassion, heard the groaning of his people. He sent Moses to declare freedom, to open the gates of slavery. The crossing of the Red Sea, in Exodus 14, was a monumental Effatha, an impossible opening where the waters parted, revealing a dry path in the midst of the impassable, swallowing the oppressors. It was a new cycle of life for an entire nation, moving from servitude to promise, from death to life, from scarcity to provision in the desert. But the veil is not just external. Often it is internal, more subtle and therefore more dangerous, harder to identify. It is the spiritual blindness that prevents us from seeing the hand of God, the deafness to the voice of God amidst the clamor of the world, the paralysis of faith that prevents us from taking the next step. The prophet Isaiah, in chapter 6, verse 10, describes a people whose heart is callous. They have ears that will not hear and eyes that will not see, otherwise they might understand with their hearts, turn and be healed. This is a powerful description of the inner veil, of the self-imposition of limits. It is not that God is not speaking, but that the heart is closed to hearing. It is not that the light is not shining, but that the eyes are closed to seeing. How many of us today live with our hearts hardened by past disappointments, by betrayals that made us build walls of protection, with our ears deaf to divine promises, to the directions the Spirit of God gives us, with our eyes blindfolded to the opportunities God places before us, to the manifestations of His love. This is the most insidious prison, for it is self-inflicted, maintained by disbelief, bitterness, pride, and the fear of trying again, of exposing ourselves, of taking risks. Effatha. This word comes to tear that veil, to unclog the channels of your soul, to break the shell that prevents you from flourishing. It comes to untie the knots you tied yourself, or that life, with its adversities and injustices, imposed on you. The paralysis of faith that prevents you from acting. The emotional stagnation that prevents you from feeling full joy. The financial scarcity that seems like a generational curse. The broken relationships that bleed your soul and drain your energy. The lack of purpose that leaves you wandering aimlessly without meaning. All these are symptoms of closed doors, of an interrupted vital flow. You feel like Lazarus, bound in grave clothes, inside a tomb, even if the tomb is your own routine, your own limiting thought, your own fear of stepping out. Jesus cried out, "Lazarus, come out," in John 11:43, and Lazarus came out, still in his grave clothes, but alive, restored. The word Effatha is that same command of life, of breakthrough, of coming out of spiritual, emotional, financial captivity. It is not a suggestion, it is a decree. A divine command that resonates from the throne of grace to your most desperate, most unattainable situation. We now understand the problem, the pain, the imprisonment that many experience. But what is the key to freedom? The key is the word Effatha. Let's go to its deeper context, its birthplace in the Holy Scriptures. The word Effatha comes from Aramaic, the language Jesus spoke daily, the language of the common people of Galilee. It appears in a singular and powerful way in Mark, chapter 7, verses 31 to 37. The passage describes a man who was deaf and had difficulty speaking. People brought him to Jesus, imploring him to lay hands on him, a common healing practice at the time. But Jesus did something different, something intimate and powerfully revealing that went beyond the conventional. He took him aside, away from the curious and noisy crowd, creating a space for personal connection, privacy, and the sacred. He put his fingers into the man's ears and, spitting, touched his tongue. Then, looking up to heaven, he sighed deeply, a sigh that expressed divine compassion and empathy with human suffering, and an uninterrupted connection with the Father, the source of all power, and said, "Effatha," which means, "be opened." And immediately, at that very instant, the man's ears were opened, his tongue was loosened, and he began to speak clearly, without stuttering, without impediment. This is not merely an account of physical healing. It is a profound spiritual lesson that transcends time and culture, resonating in our day. Jesus did not just heal a body, he opened a vital communication channel. Deafness and difficulty speaking were barriers to social interaction, to relationship with God and neighbor, to a full understanding of life and the Torah. Historically, in Jewish culture, deafness and muteness were often seen not just as physical ailments, but as signs of isolation, of a life on the margins of society and religious life, of an inability to fully participate in the community and in worship in the temple or synagogue. The man could not hear the words of the Torah, the prayers, the voice of God in its fullness, nor proclaim His glory, nor participate in the conversations of daily life, feeling excluded. He lived in a world of silence and isolation, a world closed in on itself. Jesus, by saying Effatha, not only restored his hearing and speech, but reintegrated him into the community, into the full human and spiritual experience. He opened the door to life in its totality, to communication, to participation, to fullness. Jesus' gesture, putting his fingers in the ears, touching the tongue with saliva, was deeply symbolic and culturally understood. At that time, saliva was considered a healing agent in some popular and mystical traditions, and the direct touch demonstrated an intimate connection, a transfer of power and compassion, an identification with the pain of the sick. It was a way for Jesus to physically connect with the man's affliction, to enter his world of isolation. But what truly worked the miracle was not the touch or the saliva, although they were part of the healing ritual and demonstration of love. It was the word spoken with divine authority, Effatha. It is the voice of the Creator that commands matter, that breaks through the barriers of the impossible, that reverses what is established. It is the same voice that said, "Let there be light," in Genesis 1:3, and there was light, bringing order from primordial chaos. It is the voice that said, "Lazarus, come out," in John 11:43, and the dead man was resurrected, defying death itself. It is the voice that calmed the storm in Mark 4:39, silencing the chaos of nature with a simple command, Effatha. This word is not just for your ears or your tongue. It is for all areas of your life that are closed, blocked, stagnant, paralyzed. Is your business stagnant, struggling to grow with no new customers, no new ideas? Effatha. Is your marriage in crisis, communication broken, love seemingly vanished, replaced by coldness and resentment? Effatha. Is your health debilitated, a diagnosis imprisoning you, pain consuming you day and night, stealing your vitality? Effatha. Is your mind full of negative thoughts, anxiety, fear, doubts that paralyze you and prevent you from moving forward? Effatha. It is the master key that opens all the doors locked by the enemy, by doubt, by inertia, by hopelessness, by bitterness, by unforgiveness, by mental scarcity. It is the declaration that the divine flow, which was dammed up, contained, will now be released into your life with force, with abundance, with purpose, and with joy. The spiritual context is crucial here. Jesus, by sighing and looking up to heaven before uttering the word, demonstrates the direct and unwavering connection with the source of all power, with the very throne of God. It was not human power, derived from techniques or esoteric rituals, but divine power, coming directly from the Father, who is the source of all life and all miracles. He was invoking the authority of the kingdom of heaven to intervene in earthly reality, to manifest God's will for healing and restoration. And it is this same authority, the authority of Christ, that is available to you today through the Spirit of God who dwells in you. When you cry out, Effatha, you are not just repeating an empty word. You are invoking the same authority that made deaf ears hear and mute tongues speak, the same authority that raised the dead and multiplied loaves. You are connecting to the source of the miracle, to the very heart of God, who longs to see you free, prosperous, and abundant in all areas. The implications for today are vast and profound, touching every aspect of our existence. We live in a world where communication is abundant, but true connection is rare, where people feel more alone than ever, where information is vast, but wisdom is scarce and truth is relativized, where doors seem to close faster than they open, whether in the competitive job market, in opportunities for personal growth, or in building meaningful and lasting relationships. Spiritual deafness prevents us from hearing the still, small voice of God amidst the deafening noise of the world, the clamor of the media, the voices of social media, the opinions of others that lead us astray. Spiritual muteness prevents us from proclaiming the truth, from sharing our faith, from expressing our purpose, from defending what we believe in, from giving a voice to the voiceless. How many people are trapped in cycles of seemingly endless debt, of chronic illness that steals vitality and joy, of toxic relationships that drain the soul and hope, of lack of purpose that leaves them wandering aimlessly, without meaning, without life. simply because the doors to liberation seem insurmountable, invisible, unattainable, sealed. Effatha. This word is for you who feel this way, for you who carry this invisible burden. It is for the student who cannot concentrate, who feels their mind blocked from learning, who cannot absorb knowledge. It is for the professional who cannot advance in their career, who feels invisible in their workplace, who does not receive deserved recognition. It is for the entrepreneur who sees their business stagnate, despite all the effort, dedication, and sacrifice, unable to break through barriers. It is for the couple who cannot communicate, living in deafening silences, in unresolved hurts, in emotional distance. It is for the soul that feels empty and directionless, searching for meaning in existence, a greater purpose. It is a divine decree that everything that was closed in your life, everything that was preventing your progress, everything that was silencing your voice and your spiritual hearing, everything that was blocking your potential is now opened, released, unbound, and transformed by the glory of God. God is beginning a new cycle of victories in you. This is the core, the pulsating heart of today's message, the central promise that is manifesting. A cycle is a pattern, a repetition. Many of us are trapped in vicious cycles. The cycle of financial scarcity, where money seems to slip through our fingers as fast as it comes. The cycle of illness, where one sickness follows another without respite. The cycle of frustration in relationships, where the same toxic patterns repeat, leading to disillusionment. The cycle of procrastination, which prevents the realization of dreams and goals. The cycle of anxiety and fear, which steals peace and joy from living. It is like a broken record, repeating the same off-key note, the same melody of defeat, of I can't, of I'm not capable. You try to get out. You make an effort. You fight with all your strength. You pray. But it seems the same situations repeat, the same doors close, the same problems resurface, the same internal voices pull you back, discourage you. Think of the cycle of Joseph in the Old Testament. He dreamed of greatness, of a future of leadership and provision for his family. But he was thrown into a pit by his own brothers, betrayed and sold as a slave to merchants, and unjustly imprisoned in Egypt, accused of a crime he did not commit, spending years in prison. It seemed his life was an endless cycle of betrayal, suffering, and imprisonment. But in each of those moments, God was working an Effatha in his heart, opening internal doors of wisdom, resilience, integrity, patience, and unwavering faith. And, in God's perfect time, at the exact moment, the prison doors opened, the palace doors opened, and he became governor of Egypt, the second most powerful man in the nation, saving his family and many others from famine. The cycle of slavery and imprisonment was broken, and a new cycle of victory and purpose was initiated, as detailed in Genesis 37-50, a story of redemption and exaltation. Or consider the cycle of barrenness in the lives of Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Hannah. For women of that era, and in many cultures even today, barrenness was a cycle of shame, humiliation, and despair, a closed door to the continuation of family and legacy, a social curse. The doors of the womb were closed, preventing the joy of motherhood. But in each of these stories, God intervened with a divine Effatha, a miracle of opening and life. He opened the barren womb, initiating a new cycle of life and joy that overflowed. Sarah gave birth to Isaac in her old age, Genesis 18, Rebecca to Jacob and Esau, Genesis 25, Rachel to Joseph, Genesis 29-30, and Hannah to Samuel, Samuel 1, the great prophet. These women did not just have children. Their children became central figures in the history of salvation, patriarchs and prophets who shaped the destiny of Israel and, by extension, of humanity. The miracle was not just for them, but for future generations, an Effatha that reverberated through time, changing the course of history. Effatha. This word is to break the cycle of lack of opportunity that seems to haunt you. Perhaps you have sent hundreds of resumes, carefully crafted with your best qualifications, but no job door has opened, just silence. Perhaps you have tried to start a business, invested time, resources, and passion, but every attempt has resulted in failure or stagnation, unable to take off. Perhaps you have invested in relationships, given your best, but it always ends in disillusionment, in broken hearts, in loneliness. These are cycles that need to be broken, and the word Effatha is the key, the divine command for rupture, for the interruption of these negative patterns. It decrees that the cycle of scarcity of opportunities, of failed relationships, of unfinished projects, of debilitated health ends now, and a new cycle of open doors, of divine favor, of healthy relationships, of prosperity, and of success begins in your life. The Bible is full of examples of God breaking cycles. In Deuteronomy 28, the law presents a detailed list of blessings for obedience and curses for disobedience. The curses are described as cycles of defeat, disease, scarcity, oppression, and exile, a downward spiral. But God always offers a way to break these cycles, a path of genuine repentance, obedience to His word, and unwavering faith in His promises, a path of return and restoration. The new cycle of victories is not a coincidence, not luck, not the result of fate or chance. It is a divine promise activated by your faith and prophetic declaration, an intervention from heaven in your earthly reality, a manifestation of God's grace. The practical applications are immense and urgent for your daily life. First, you need to identify the cycle you want to break. Be honest with yourself without beating around the bush or making excuses. Is it the cycle of chronic debt that suffocates you and steals your sleep? The cycle of illness that weakens you and prevents you from living fully? The cycle of anger and resentment that poisons your soul and your relationships? The cycle of loneliness that isolates and depresses you? The cycle of mediocrity that prevents you from reaching your full potential and living your purpose? Name it. Give it a voice, not to empower it, but to identify it, confront it, and declare it broken. Second, you need to surrender. Not fight against it with your own strength, with your own intelligence or cunning, which have proven insufficient, but surrender to God's authority over this situation. This means recognizing that you cannot do it alone, that your human strategies have failed, and that you need supernatural intervention, the powerful and loving hand of God. Third, you need to declare Effatha over this cycle. Not as an empty repetition, a mere sound without meaning, but as a powerful prayer full of faith and expectation, a prophetic decree that releases the power of heaven on earth, that moves mountains and opens seas. Imagine the chains breaking, the twisted metal falling to the ground, the doors opening smoothly, majestically, the flow of blessings flooding the area that was once dry, arid, lifeless, transforming it into a fertile garden. Effatha. The mechanism of Effatha is not mystical in the sense of being incomprehensible or inaccessible to your faith, but mystical in the sense of being divine, supernatural, operating beyond human logic, science, statistics. It is not a magic formula that dispenses with faith or action, but a spiritual principle that is activated through total surrender and unwavering faith. Think of the difference between trying to break down a door with brute force and having the key to open it easily. When you try to break it down, you use brute force, sweat, exhaustion, and you might even succeed, but with damage, with scars, with the door broken and the frame ruined. But when you have the key, the opening is smooth, effortless, without damage, without violence, without wear and tear. The word Effatha is the divine key, the master key that was forged in heaven by the Creator Himself and delivered to you through Jesus Christ. Surrender is the first step to the miracle, the condition for God's power to manifest. It is not a surrender of defeat, of weakness, of giving up, of throwing in the towel, but a surrender of absolute trust in God's power and sovereignty, who can do all things. It is the humble recognition that your own efforts, however noble, persistent, and well-intentioned, are not enough to break certain spiritual or material barriers that imprison you. It is the surrender of your will to God's sovereign will, which is good, perfect, and pleasing, which only desires your good. It is what the Apostle Paul describes in 2 Corinthians 12:9, when God says to him, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." When you recognize your weakness, your inability to open certain doors that seem sealed and unattainable, that is when the power of Effatha manifests in all its glory, in all its strength. You are not giving up the fight. You are aligning yourself with the source of all power, inviting the creator of the universe to fight for you, to open the way before you. Faith is the activator, the ignition that lights the flame of the miracle, the fuel that propels the supernatural. Hebrews 11:1 tells us that faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. When Jesus said Effatha to the deaf and mute man, the man did not see anything happen before the word was spoken, no light, no visible sign. He only heard, or in this case did not hear before, but felt the command. But he felt the touch, the presence of Jesus, the authority in his voice. His faith, or the faith of those who brought him and who were around him, was the catalyst for the manifestation of God's power. Your faith does not need to be perfect. It does not need to be gigantic like a mountain, but it needs to be present, active, genuine. Faith as small as a mustard seed is enough to move mountains, to open doors that no man can close, to accomplish the impossible, Matthew 17:20. It is faith that transforms the invisible into the visible, the impossible into the possible, the dream into reality. How to activate Effatha in your life in a practical and powerful way. First, through the prayer of surrender. Say to God, with all the sincerity and humility of your heart, "Lord, I cannot open this door alone. I surrender to your will and your power over this specific situation in my life." Be specific about what you are surrendering, about the cycle you want to break. Second, through prophetic declaration. Repeat the word Effatha over your specific situation, not as an empty incantation or a meaningless superstition, but as a declaration of faith, a prophetic decree that releases the power of heaven on earth, that moves the spiritual realm in your favor. Effatha over my finances, Effatha over my health, Effatha over my relationship, Effatha over my purpose, Effatha over my mind, Effatha over my family, Effatha over my future. Feel the word resonate in your spirit, in your cells, in your environment, creating a new reality. Third, through active expectation. Don't just passively wait for something to happen, but wait with active faith, with vibrant anticipation, with the certainty that God will act. Prepare for the opening. Prepare for the new cycle. Clean the house. Get organized. Create physical and mental space for what God will bring, for the new blessings. Think of the woman with the issue of blood in Mark 5:25-34. She had suffered for 12 long years, an eternity of pain and isolation, spent everything she had on doctors, seeking relief in all directions, and only got worse, her condition aggravated. All doors to healing were closed. The medicine of the time had no answers for her, only despair. She was considered impure by the law, socially isolated, with no contact with anyone. She did not have the word Effatha on her lips, but she had unwavering faith in her heart, a faith that propelled her. She said to herself inwardly, "If I just touch his clothes, I will be healed." She surrendered to her own inability to heal herself and activated her faith, moving towards Jesus amidst the crowd that pushed and crushed her. She approached, touched, and immediately the bleeding stopped, the hemorrhage ceased. Jesus felt power go out from him and asked who had touched him. This was an Effatha for her body, an opening to healing that no one else could give, a miracle of total restoration that changed her life forever. Effatha, the doors are opening, the chains are breaking. This is your Sunday of miracles, a day that will be marked in your history. The manifestation is not a distant promise, a dream to be achieved in an uncertain future, but an imminent reality, already underway, already being released, already moving towards you. What does Sunday of Miracles mean? It means that today, on this day, something extraordinary, something that transcends human logic, science, statistics, probabilities, is being released into your life, is manifesting for you. It is not just any day. It is a marked day, anointed for breakthrough, for turning around, for newness, for God's glory to manifest. Think of Jesus's miracles. They were not random events, divine whims, or magic tricks. They were demonstrations of the power of the kingdom of God breaking into human reality, challenging natural laws and limitations imposed by sickness, death, scarcity. Water turned into wine in Cana, John 2:1-11, was a miracle of provision and abundance, transforming scarcity into superabundance, common water into the best wine. The paralytic man lowered through the roof, Mark 2:1-12, experienced a miracle of physical healing and, more importantly, spiritual forgiveness, demonstrating Jesus' authority over sin and sickness, restoring him completely. The multiplication of loaves and fish, Matthew 14:13-21, was a miracle of superabundance that fed thousands with just a few loaves and fish, defying the logic of scarcity and impossibility. Each of these miracles was an Effatha in action, opening doors to the impossible for God's glory to be revealed. Today, the miracles of Effatha can manifest in various areas of your life. In your health, you can feel the pain diminish, energy return, healing begin to flow where there was chronic illness before, with no medical explanation, no apparent solution. In your financial life, job doors can open unexpectedly, debts can be paid off by supernatural means, business opportunities can arise out of nowhere, turning your situation from scarcity to abundance, from debt to prosperity. In your family life and relationships, communication can be restored where there was silence and hurt, forgiveness can flow where there was resentment and bitterness, love can be rekindled where there was coldness and distance, bringing healing and unity. In your purpose, clarity can emerge where there was confusion and uncertainty. Direction can be revealed step by step, and the steps towards your divine calling can become visible, tangible, and achievable. Imagine the scene vividly, with all its details. You stand before a massive door, made of aged oak, with rusted iron bolts and giant padlocks that seem impossible to move, sealing your destiny. You have tried everything, pushing with all your might, pulling desperately, calling for help, crying, begging, exhausting all your energy. But the door remains impassable, a symbol of your stagnation, your limit, your imprisonment. Then, a voice, the voice of the creator of the universe, the voice that can do all things, the voice that raised the dead and opened the Red Sea, pronounces, Effatha. And the door, without creaking, without effort, without any sign of resistance, without warning, simply opens. It does not open a little, timidly, just a crack. It swings wide open majestically, revealing a brilliant light and a path you never imagined existed, a path of peace, prosperity, joy, purpose, full life. This is the manifestation of the Effatha miracle in your life, a supernatural breakthrough. Testimonies of Effatha are repeated throughout human history and in our day, in all parts of the world, in all cultures, in all realities. People who were trapped in devastating addictions that destroyed their lives and families, and suddenly the compulsion breaks, the craving disappears, freedom emerges. People who were in deep depression, in the darkness of the soul, without seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and a light of hope ignites. bringing emotional healing and a new meaning to live. A reason to get up. Families that were broken, at war, divided. And a word of reconciliation, a gesture of forgiveness, opens the way for the restoration of love and unity, for the rebuilding of bonds. Business is on the verge of bankruptcy, without prospects, and a new idea, a new customer, a new opportunity arises out of nowhere, turning the tide and bringing unexpected prosperity. Cases of healing from incurable diseases, of organ restoration, of minds freed from torments and disorders. These are not fairy tales, distant legends, or mere coincidences. They are realities of God's power, manifestations of the divine Effatha, revealed to those who believe. Effatha. The miracle is not just for others, for those you see on television or hear about. It is for you. It is for your now, for your present moment. Not for tomorrow, not for the distant future, not for when you are good enough or worthy, but for this exact moment. The Bible tells us in 2 Corinthians 6:2, I tell you, now is the time of God's favor, now is the day of salvation. The now is God's time for your opening, for your breakthrough, for your liberation, for the beginning of your new cycle. Do not postpone your blessing due to disbelief or false humility. Do not doubt your ability to receive what God has for you, for He is generous. Just open yourself and receive with a grateful heart full of faith. To live in the new cycle of victories, the opening of Effatha is not a single isolated event, like a lightning strike that comes and goes, but a state of being, a continuous posture of the heart and soul. It is a portal that has opened and needs to be kept open, actively, with vigilance and intentionality. We cannot allow the doors to close again due to lack of faith, spiritual negligence, yielding to old patterns of thought and behavior, or allowing the enemy to plant seeds of doubt and discouragement. Remaining in the new cycle of victories requires constant vigilance, an attitude of deep gratitude for every blessing, and a posture of constant reception and obedience to the voice of God. First, maintain an open and receptive heart. Just as the man healed by Jesus could hear and speak, you need to keep your channels of communication with God open and clear. This means hearing His voice through the word, prayer, intuition, wisdom from above, divine counsel. It means speaking with Him in gratitude, praise, worship, and petition, pouring out your heart before Him. Philippians 4:6-7 exhorts us, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Gratitude is a powerful key to keeping doors open, a magnet for more blessings, a way of recognizing God's hand in everything. Second, practice perseverance in faith. The new cycle of victories may bring new challenges, for the enemy of your soul does not want you to remain free and prosperous. He will try to close the doors again with doubts, fears, discouragement, obstacles, and temptations to return to old habits. But James 1:2-4 tells us, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. Perseverance is not blind stubbornness or a denial of reality, but the firmness of one who knows that God began a good work in their life and will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Philippians 1:6, no matter what happens. Third, obey divine direction. When God opens a door, He also indicates the path to follow, the steps to take, the decisions to make. Obedience is the vital bridge between the divine promise and its full manifestation in your life. In John 14:21, Jesus says, whoever has my commands and keeps them is the one who loves me. The one who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I will love them and show myself to them. The continuous manifestation of Effatha victories is linked to our willingness to follow the voice that set us free, to walk in the paths He reveals to us, to do His will. If He has opened your ears, it is for you to hear and obey. If He has opened your mouth, it is for you to proclaim and declare His truth, to be a herald of His glory. Effatha. It is a call to action, an invitation to interaction, not just to listen passively, but to participate actively. Do not remain passive before this word. Comment Effatha out loud in your heart. Type it if you are reading or watching. Make a personal decree. Allow this word to become a seal on your soul, a mantra of freedom, a constant reminder that you have been open to the new, to abundant life. Share this faith with someone you know who needs a breakthrough, who needs to see a door open in their life, who needs hope, a miracle. Be a channel for the power of Effatha to reach other lives, for the light that flooded you to spread and illuminate the path of many. Think of the story of Peter in prison in Acts 12. He was chained, sleeping between two soldiers, with guards at the prison door and a massive iron gate at the end of the corridor, sealing any possibility of escape. Humanly, there was no way out, no hope of liberation. The doors were firmly closed, sealed by Roman authority, by the strength of the empire. But the church prayed incessantly for him, with fervent, ceaseless faith, day and night. And then, in the middle of the night, an angel of the Lord appeared. A divine light shone in the cell, and the angel touched Peter and woke him from his deep sleep. "Quick, get up," the angel said. And the chains fell off his hands without anyone touching them, without human effort. He followed the angel, passing the guards and the iron gate leading to the city opened by itself, without anyone touching it, without creaking, without difficulty. This was a supernatural Effatha, a divine opening in the midst of the thickest darkness, a liberation that defied all human logic and the laws of physics. The prayers of the church were the catalyst for this miracle. Collective faith opened the doors of captivity. Effatha. The power of Effatha is not limited by prison bars, by oppressive systems, by unfavorable medical diagnoses, by mountains of debt, by chronic pain, or by any barrier that the world or the enemy can erect against you. It is the power of God that transcends all human barriers, all physical limitations, all earthly logic, all impossibility. The new cycle of victories is a cycle of abundance in all areas of your life, of peace that transcends all human understanding, of purpose that illuminates the path and gives meaning to your existence. It is the full life that Jesus promised in John 10:10. "I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." A life that overflows, that is rich in meaning, in joy, in love, in provision, in health, in peace. This is a moment of decision, a crucial turning point in your spiritual and existential journey. You can choose to remain under the veil of resignation, in the prison of "I can't," accepting mediocrity as your destiny, or you can cry out, Effatha, with all your faith and open yourself to the torrent of blessings, to the river of provision that God has for you, a river that never dries up. The choice is yours, but the power has already been released. The key is in your hands, or rather, in your mouth and in your heart, ready to be used, to unlock what was sealed. It is not about a single prayer, and everything is magically solved without your participation, without your faith, without your action. It is about an activation, a deep awakening in your soul, a continuous commitment. The initial Effatha is the breaking of the ice, the breaking of the first chain, the opening of the first door to freedom. But life in the new cycle requires you to continue walking in faith, declaring the truth about your life, living in gratitude for every small and great victory God grants you. Every new challenge that arises in your path will be an opportunity for you to declare Effatha over that situation again, reaffirming your position of freedom and victory in Christ. consolidating the new cycle. Effatha. The sound of this word echoes through the centuries, from the lips of the Master to your ears today, on this Sunday of miracles, a day of celebration and expectation. It is an echo of freedom, healing, fullness, total restoration. It is the sound of hope becoming reality, of the promise manifesting before your eyes. It is the promise of a God who not only opens doors that were impassable, but also keeps them open for those who trust in Him, who abide in Him, who walk in His will. Allow the authority of this word to penetrate every fiber of your being, every cell of your body, every thought of your mind, every emotion of your soul. Feel it undoing the knots of anxiety that suffocate you, dissolving the clouds of depression that obscure your vision, breaking the shackles of scarcity that keep you trapped in a cycle of lack. Imagine yourself walking freely through a vast green field, with the sun on your face, the fresh wind in your hair, and the sound of a rushing river flowing beside you, its waters clear and abundant, watering every area of your life. This river is the provision, joy, peace, health, love, purpose that God is pouring out on you now, at this moment. Effatha, it is your password to the miracle, to the supernatural. It is your declaration that the time of waiting, stagnation, limitation, pain, shame, failure is over. It is your cry of victory over everything that tried to keep you captive, trapped, silenced, bound. The past no longer defines you. Failures no longer imprison you. The negative voices of doubt and self-sabotage will no longer silence you. You have been opened, you have been liberated, you have been empowered to live a new cycle of victories, a life of abundance in Christ Jesus, the author and finisher of your faith. Remember the prophet Ezekiel in the valley of dry bones, Ezekiel 37:1-14. God took Ezekiel to a valley full of dry bones, very dry, lifeless, hopeless, a scene of total desolation. God asked Ezekiel, "Son of man, can these bones live?" Humanly, the answer was a resounding no, an impossibility. The doors of life were closed to those bones. Death had reigned for a long time. But God told Ezekiel to prophesy over the bones, to tell them with divine authority. Dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. And as Ezekiel prophesied, obeying God's voice, the bones came together, tendons and flesh covered them, and the breath of life entered them, and they stood up as a vast army, full of life, restored. This was a mass, Effatha, an opening of life where there was only death and hopelessness, a large-scale resurrection that demonstrated God's creative power. Your situation may seem like a valley of dry bones. Your finances may seem like dry bones, lifeless, with no prospect of growth. Your marriage may seem like dry bones, without love, without communication, without hope of restoration. Your health may seem like dry bones, with diagnoses that offer no hope, with persistent pain. Your purpose may seem like dry bones, without direction, without passion, without meaning. But the word Effatha is your prophecy, your declaration of life over what is dead, of opening over what is closed, of restoration over what is broken, of hope over what seems lost. Effatha. It is not just for you individually, it is for your home, for your family, for your community, for your nation. When you open yourself to the power of God, you become a channel, a vessel of blessings for others. The light that floods you begins to radiate to those around you, transforming the environment, dispelling the darkness. Your victory is not isolated, it has a ripple effect, an impact that multiplies and spreads. Your testimony of Effatha can be the key that opens the door for someone else, the inspiration that ignites faith in another heart, living proof of God's power. Therefore, remain in this truth. Anchor yourself in this word. Let it be the melody of your heart, the cry of your soul, the hymn of your freedom, the song of your victory. The Sunday of Miracles is not an event that ends at sunset. It is a door that has opened and remains open, a continuous invitation to live in the fullness of God's promises, to walk in victory, to experience the supernatural in your daily life, at every step, in every decision. Do not allow yourself to go back. Do not allow yourself to doubt, even if circumstances try to contradict the word you have heard, even if problems seem to grow larger. The enemy of your soul will try to whisper lies, will try to remind you of the old cycles, will try to make you believe that the door will close again, that hope is an illusion, that the miracle is not for you. But you have the word, you have the power, you have the authority of Effatha. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you, as James 4:7 says. Declare the truth of your opening, your freedom, your victory in Christ Jesus, who has already won for you. Effatha. With every breath, feel freedom invading your lungs, filling you with life. With every beat of your heart, feel the new life pulsing in your veins, the divine energy flowing in your body. With every thought, feel renewed hope and growing faith, dissipating the shadows of doubt. You are not alone on this journey. The Spirit of God is with you, guiding you, strengthening you, confirming every step of the new cycle of victories, whispering the truth into your spirit, revealing the secrets of heaven. Remember what Jesus said in John 14:12. Very truly I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these, because I am going to the Father. So, if Jesus uttered Effatha and ears were opened, tongues were loosened and doors were opened, you who believe in him, who have his Spirit dwelling in you, have the authority to utter this word over your own life and over the circumstances around you. Use that authority, declare that word. This is not a superficial motivational sermon which merely scratches the surface of your emotions and then fades away. It is a deep call to radical transformation, to spiritual revolution in your life. It is an invitation for you to emerge from the cocoon of resignation, from the darkness of captivity, from the swamp of stagnation, and to fly on the wings of faith into the fullness that God prepared for you from the foundation of the world. It is the declaration that God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, the Lord of the impossible, the restorer of all things, the Alpha and Omega, is acting in your favor now, at this very moment, so that a new cycle of victories may begin and be established in your life for his glory. Effatha. The doors are open, the chains are broken, the new cycle of victories has begun. Receive it, live it, share it. Be the miracle you wish to see in the world. May the word Effatha resonate in your soul, opening every door, breaking every chain, and releasing the fullness of life that God has for you. May it be so, now and forever.